Oh, let's take a look at some news. I was very surprised to see this. The Federal Communications Commission contacted the network, I think ABC, and told them to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air, and that's what they did. And the reason they took him off the air is this is what he said. He said, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. And like several other people who have been fired and canceled, I don't see anything wrong with that. I know one person got fired because she put up some tweets and all she did was quote lines from Charlie Kirk with no comment. Just really objectionable lines like black people are inferior to white people and stuff like women are inferior to men and stuff like that he says. And that was considered to be defaming him to repeat what he said, enough that you get fired for that. So it's a highly emotional time. And well, I remember when 9/11 happened, Bill Maher lost his show and was thrown off the air because he said the president, that was George Bush Jr. at that time, said, "Those are cowards." And he said, "You can call them something else, but it's not cowardice to ride the plane to your death and crash into a building. Those guys were not cowards." So they canceled his show. It took him years to get back on the air after that. There are just certain periods of time when people are just really, really emotional. And you can offend them even with a statement that's objectively not really that bad. Anyway, so Trump has managed to take down Colbert and Kimmel. Now he wants to take on the New York Times. Now, I said to people when Trump got in the first time that I figured when the New York Times became Pravda, it would be time to flee the country. But I don't feel that much now because I feel like there's going to be a blue wave in 26 and 28, and this is all going to stop. But we'll see. It is, when you're in a country that's slipping into fascism, it is a concern because at a certain point, they start hunting down your group and throwing you in concentration camps, and at a certain point, they close the borders and you can't get out. So you do want to escape before that happens. And it's a little hard to judge how bad it is for the gradual erosion of liberties inside here. So we'll see. But I'm expecting it'll get better in 26. If they cancel the election in 26 and 28, then I think it would probably be wise to think about escaping while you still can. Anyway, all right, so this was extremely interesting. I learned about this in the Security Now podcast, which I highly recommend. Apple has got a new feature called Memory Integrity Enforcement, and they've been working on this for years, and the point of this is to end memory corruption vulnerabilities, buffer overflows, and all the other kinds that we exploit in the exploit development class. And it's very interesting. What they've done, which is a very clever trick. Now, we already have memory regions that can have permissions like read, write, or execute. But now what they're going to do is put a tag on each memory region that is allocated. And that's what these shapes are indicating. And I think it's something like a random number. But the point is, when you first allocate it from the application that requested to use this memory, it marks it with a tag, and every request to read or write that memory must have the correct tag, which means it has to come from the correct application. If any request is made from any other application, it won't have the right tag, and the program will immediately stop. And so if the wrong tag tries to go here, then it blocks it and stops the program. And that would stop almost all memory corruption attacks. And even more cleverly, every time you release temporary memory from the heap and reallocate it, it assigns it a new random tag. So if you had, for example, a dangling pointer vulnerability where an old pointer still points to that memory, it would be blocked because the tag has changed when that memory is no longer allocated. And so this is really very clever. And they say it took an awful lot of work to incorporate this in all their operating systems, but it's in the latest version of everything. And this is likely to make it very secure. And it already was very secure. This statement here is one I've mentioned before. There has never been a successful widespread malware attack against the iPhone. There are targeted attacks and stalkerware you install on the phone, but there's never been like a spreading worm that infected the iPhones, except for jailbroken iPhones that didn't change the default password, which is not Apple's fault. That's when you've broken the phone and moved out of Apple's protection. So anyway, it's a very secure platform, and this is going to make it much more secure, apparently, although, of course, usually when a new thing like this comes out, there are bugs in it, but it sounds pretty good. And So university professors are also getting fired and punished. So the student posted a video of her recording the professor, and what she was doing was complaining that the professor was suggesting that there exist gay and transgender people. And she said, the president has declared that there are only two genders, male and female, and therefore it's illegal for you to say that. And the professor said, I don't think that's illegal, but apparently they have been suspended and may in fact be fired. And this is more of the, that's what the thing, one thing, in fact, we should try this now. One thing I do every now and then is I go on Google and ask it who won the 2020 presidential election. Because this answer I expect to change one of these days. Right now, it says Joe Biden won. But that's not the AI. Let's go to AI and see what the AI says. Because a few months ago, it refused to answer this question. Now, it actually says Joe Biden won. And I wonder how long it'll be before Trump contacts them and says, you have to stop saying this. Anyway, but it hasn't happened yet. That's another mark. Is memory integrity protection invented for Mac OS? Yes, Windows does not have it. No, Windows doesn't have anything like that. If it's a success in the Mac, maybe Windows will imitate it. But this, as far as I know, is a very new idea. Nobody has it but Mac OS and iOS. Yeah, good. Anyway, so the culture wars and the cancel culture is raging forward. That's one effect of this Charlie Kirk shooting. Now, it's very clear, I think, that Trump and especially Elon Musk very much hoped that this shooting would lead to violence. He went to the far-right rally in UK and told them, we are at war, you have to fight, it's your survival. If you don't fight now, they're just going to kill you. He's been saying that all over the place. He really wants to see more people get killed in revenge for Charlie Kirk, and I think Trump wants to see that too. And so far, that has not seemed to be happening. But they are managing to get people fired and such. So we'll see how far it goes. Yeah.
See, I just walked in, and I always find it interesting that I walk into interesting topics, and I like that.
Well, good. I hope so. Yeah, people often say the news is the best part. So anyway, now one of the election deniers that was part of the Stop the Steal movement is now in charge of U.S. election security, which is what you'd expect from a Trump administration. Just like Republican administrations usually take heads of like oil companies and put them in charge of the environment and so on. They like to put people that are there primarily to burn down agencies. Anyway, so they're going to Waymo's. I've been in San Francisco for a while, and Waymo's and Tesla's self-driving cars are now available for taxi service in San Francisco, although the taxis have to have a safety driver in them because they're not approved for independent operation. But now they're going to roll out to the airport, and I think that'll be a very popular run. That's probably the main thing I use them for. They're getting a permit for it.
That actually reminds me of the existential problem is why Waymo's exists in the first place.
Problem with what?
Oh, the existential issue of implementing the Waymo's in the first place. Conceptually, on paper, what they're supposed to do is solve a transportation issue. On practice, all they do is add more cars to the street, but actually subtracting.
Well, that's what people said about Uber and Lyft. They said they were going to ease congestion by ride sharing, but of course they just increased congestion because everybody's just a taxi cab.
And then there's the whole layers with the Uber and Lyft algorithm stuff.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll see what happens. Waymos are currently pleasant to ride, people tell me, and safe. The problem is each Waymo costs $500,000, and each Tesla only costs $30,000. And they can't possibly charge enough to pay for that. So we'll see. These, just like AI, and this is a form of AI too, all current AI products are selling for a tiny fraction of what it actually costs to run them. They're all running on loss leaders. Pretty soon, they're going to have to raise the price to the actual price of producing the product, and then these things are going to suddenly become much less popular. And all the companies that fired their staff and tried to replace them with AI are going to have to rethink that when the price of AI goes up. Anyway,
Morbid.
Yeah, well, this is what happens in California. We have these booms. Everybody jumps on a bandwagon and does something, and then after a while they begin to realize it's kind of stupid. So this was interesting. One of the world's most brilliant AI scientists left the U.S. for China, and he did it because in America, his research topic wasn't getting much respect, but China offered him his own lab, a luxurious home, assistants, powerful hardware. They gave him a much more complete lab to work in, so he went to China.
If you build the scientific infrastructure, people will come.
Yeah, and China gave him a much better deal, so he moved there. Now he's in charge of a huge AI project there, so we'll see how it goes.
I'm glad that he knows how much it's worked out.
Yeah. And so RFK Jr.'s crusade against vaccines is taking place primarily tomorrow. He's replaced all the members of the Vaccine Advisory Board with quacks, anti-vaxxers, and they're going to vote tomorrow. And they're widely expected to block hepatitis B vaccination. And I was very interested in this article. It explains, I did not know about hepatitis B. Hepatitis B, people often contract it from their mothers during birth, and then it's relatively silent and it just kills you later in life. And it was a huge problem. Certain communities had like a 15% rate of people having this, and after they vaccinated, it all fell to zero. So it's sort of like smallpox and other diseases. The vaccine is incredibly important and incredibly effective, and it's also highly transmissible. So the whooping cough now is 6 times what it was last year, and measles has a huge outbreak, worse than it's had in many years. I expect soon to hear about polio outbreaks, and I guess we'll soon hear about hepatitis B outbreaks too, as the United States abandons modern medicine and retreats to the 1700s.
Given
Yeah.
the nature of how hepatitis B is supposed to work,
What's that?
given the nature of how hepatitis B works, we won't hear about it for a few decades.
Well, yes, I mean, these are slow spreading. I think it takes a while for the polio and the hepatitis B to kill people, so it'll hit later. Yeah. Anyway, but
Showtime, 6:10.
traffic lights. Let's see. I got to solve a CAPTCHA to see this page. All right. And yeah, so I wondered about this. One strange thing is if you buy an American electric car, it costs $35,000 or more. And the Chinese cars are much cheaper, like under $10,000. And everybody says they are very good. They're even better than the American cars. So we blocked them. You can't import them here because if you did, all American cars would never sell. And I wondered why. And apparently this is because they say in China, they don't have a free market. Instead, the government sets quotas. And the government set quotas way too high, so they made way too many cars. So many that it flooded the market, the price came down, and all the people making cars and selling them can't make profit. And that's why they're so cheap. So that's interesting. And, that's the flaw. They're incredible. A lot of companies making them, they're very good, they're very cheap. But again, just like the AI, this I think is a temporary situation that cannot persist. And so everyone is deploying AI. Microsoft is pushing out Copilot again to everybody that's got Office 365. And they're trying to explain how it has a return on investment. And they have not been able to prove that people actually get any more work done or they make any real money from deploying this. They claim that it'll make your workers 20 to 30% more productive, but they have not been able to prove that, and they have absolutely not been able to prove that a company actually made any more money after deploying Copilot. And like I said, the European Council in charge of this said that their projection is that AI will increase the productivity of workers by 1% over the next decade. Yeah.
That provides me interesting things. Well, we go back and forth about the idea of facts and checking upon logic and everything like that. One thing I'm curious is that those with the amount of money required to run these things tend not to do fact checking themselves.
Well, the amount of money to run the servers is very high. Yeah. All right, anyway. Oh, and it's actually 10 after, so I think I'm going to stop the news.